The Kawhi Leonard scandal now looking even worse for the Clippers. A new report paints things in a very unfriendly light. Plus, the NBA's extension deadline is today. The latest on who is getting a deal. I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. I've said it before, but a great way to help us grow and support the channel is to hit that subscribe button. All right, let's take a look at this. This is from the Wall Street Journal. Yeah. Not a podcast or anything. You can't be dismissive of it because it's a podcast. No, this is the Wall Street Journal. Said in December 2021, Joe Sandberg told a high-ranking aspiration executive that the Clippers had approached him about doing a deal with Leonard, their injured star. Uh-oh. The executive recalled Sandberg saying, "This is important to the Clippers." Yikes. So why is that such a big deal? Well, previously, Steve Ballmer, in his infamous, I'm going to call it the I don't know interview, where he said, we don't know what happened. We introduced aspiration and Kawhi Leonard, then I don't know. We heard they got a deal done. I have no idea what that deal looked like. In fact, I own an NBA team and I have no idea how much NBA players actually can make on endorsements. I don't know. I don't know any of that stuff. Obviously I don't buy that. I don't think that has the ring of truth, but this suggesting that the Clippers approached aspiration, asking them to do a deal with Kawhi Leonard. That is a very different characterization. Now, the Clippers may turn around and say, well, that was us just introducing them. We just put them in touch and then we were hands off. We have no idea what their deal looked like. But if it's clear that the Clippers went to aspiration and said, we would like you to do a deal with Kawhi Leonard, that does not look good for the Clips. That's going to make things look even more like this was a way to route money into the pockets of Kawhi Leonard outside of the NBA's salary cap. So this is a big deal. If this is an accurate characterization of things, it was the Clippers approaching aspiration in an attempt for them to do a deal with Kawhi. Now, the report goes on to say aspiration executives learned that Sandberg was advocating for a 4-year, $48 million deal with Leonard. Sandberg didn't control such agreements, but as the largest stockholder and board member, his preference carried weight. Inside the company, jaws dropped at the terms, with one executive telling a colleague that aspiration could purchase 7 Super Bowl ads for the contract price, and noting that, as anybody who follows the NBA at all would know, Kawhi Leonard is not worth that as a spokesman. He's just not. If you want a talent deal, maybe we should shop around, they said. Do some research. Consider a different team, one top executive told general counsel in a text message reviewed by the Wall Street Journal. You can't just commit to a $48 million spend without talking to people in the company. I don't get it. Totally agree. Kawhi is a regional star. He doesn't have the charisma of a Steph Curry, LeBron, etc. Yes, this is what anyone who follows the NBA at all, pays any attention to the league, will tell you, is that Kawhi Leonard, he is famously a quiet person. He famously does not talk a lot, does not go out there and create a lot of attention, does not get a lot of eyeballs. It's part of his personality. It's not a flaw. It's just who he is. And that's okay. But if you're going to invest $48 million in someone to represent your company, you probably want it to be somebody who actually draws attention, who will bring eyes to your company. That's what you're paying them for. And so it's curious, why do this? Then it went to the extent that Sandberg agreed to give Leonard shares from his own holdings. So he's so determined to get the deal done that he helps pay for it. The benefits that you'll get from this partnership are subsidized by my $20 million in stock. Again, this is part of the problem for the Clippers. Not only do we already have now the characterization of the Clippers actually approaching aspiration and asking them to do a sponsorship deal with Kawhi Leonard. That, of course, is a problem in and of itself. But this really touches to the root of the problem, right? Or a big piece of it. And that's why. It does not make sense. You even got people from within aspiration saying, why would we do this? Why would we spend this kind of money on Kawhi Leonard? You could argue, even if it's LeBron, who gets way more attention than Kawhi Leonard. Just ask Hennessy. You can even argue that $48 million would be a lot to give LeBron to represent, but Kawhi Leonard, that's a completely different category. And so when there's an absence of information, when something doesn't make sense and there isn't an explanation for it, at least one that's not publicly available, people are going to fill in the blanks in that situation. We see it happen all the time. And that's where we're at with this, because nobody can figure out why anyone in their right mind would do this unless there was something underhanded going. Now you could say, well, aspiration, it was all a scam, and Sandberg is a scammer and all of that. And that may be true, but that doesn't mean that you're crazy when it comes to finances, which you'd have to be to say giving Kawhi Leonard $48 million with no requirements to do anything is a smart decision. Unless, of course, there is some kind of benefit that wouldn't be on the surface obvious to aspiration to do this. And that could be something potentially underhanded. So again, that's the root of the question that the Clippers have to answer and have to explain. Why would this guy do this? And maybe it's not necessarily even a Clippers question. Maybe it's Joe Sandberg. Who knows? Maybe he's just the world's biggest Clippers fan and just loves the Clippers so much that he just wanted to make sure that Kawhi Leonard stays with the Clippers and is supportive and just wanted to be able to throw money around. I've seen some suggest that the dollar amount didn't really matter because Sandberg knew one way or another he wasn't going to be able to pay for it. So it didn't really matter. He just wanted to be able to get Kawhi Leonard in the fold and do all of that. But he also knew it wasn't going to be paid for. So maybe the fact that it was $48 million wasn't as important as it would seem. But again, these are all just theories that are going around because of the absence of information right now to answer this question of why would anyone do this unless there was some underhanded gains here by aspiration, by the Clippers, by Kawhi, this whole scandal. But again, I think the big thing, the Wall Street Journal characterizing it as the Clippers approached aspiration with the idea of doing a deal with Kawhi Leonard. That's certainly not ideal for the Clippers, who are hoping to prove that they had nothing to do with this. All right, let's talk NBA extensions. Today is the deadline. We'll get into that in 30 seconds.
Sleeper is the #1 fantasy sports app. It pays to know sports. Pick more or less on top players. Your first pick is on us, so start winning now. Play in Texas, Georgia, Minnesota, and 27 more states. Pick anytime across all sports, pregame or live. Over 10 million players are already on Sleeper. Make your picks count. Score up to 1,000 times your cash. Join today. Get up to $100 credit using code Bulletin. Call your shot on Sleeper. Download now.
All right, and Sleeper has a free $20 entry right now. No deposit needed. Great deal with them. Again, use that promo code Bulletin and go check out Sleeper. Use the link in the description down below. All right, let's talk about extensions around the NBA. Right now, we've got the deadline coming up to actually, you know what? Let's do this. A bit of unfortunate, it's quick, but a bit of unfortunate injury news. The Chicago Bulls, Kobe White has resumed on-court basketball activities and continues to make progress in his ramp-up phase for a right calf strain. He gets reevaluated in 2 weeks. I'll say what I say all the time. Reevaluate does not mean return. So Kobe White's missing the beginning of the regular season for the Bulls because guess what? The regular season starts tomorrow. But Kobe White will be out for a bit here for the Chicago Bulls. So not ideal for them. But take a look at this. This is Bobby Marks explaining what's going on today around the NBA in terms of transactions. Today is the last day to convert an Exhibit 10 player to a two-way contract. 5 p.m. Eastern time, the opening day rosters are set. 6 p.m. Eastern time is the deadline to sign a player to a rookie extension. So that's a lot of what we're seeing going on right now. And midnight Eastern time is the deadline to extend a veteran who has 2+ years left on their contract, not including an option. So we are seeing some extensions getting done or on the verge of getting done around the NBA. If you missed it, Portland yesterday had a pair of extensions that I thought were very, very good. Was very impressed with what the Blazers were able to pull off. They got an extension done for Shaedon Sharpe. They got an extension done for Toumani Camara, and the value is just absolutely fantastic. It was just over $80 million on a 4-year deal for Toumani Camara, one of the better wing defenders in the NBA. Phenomenal work there. And then Shaedon Sharpe, 4 years, $90 million. We had talked about it a little bit yesterday that he'd be looking at maybe getting up to $100 million, which would be $25 million per season. So to get Shaedon Sharpe, who put up 19 a game last season, very, very much on the rise, exciting, talented young player, and to get him for less than $25 million per season, that's just great work by the Blazers. Those are two, I think, very team-friendly deals that they got done, and I think those are going to hold positive value here into the future, as those are two players that are absolutely on the rise. But here's the latest from Mike Oscato of Hoopsite. Christian Brown and the Nuggets. There had been pessimism yesterday that has now flipped, as it can this time of year. There is cautious optimism now that a deal will get done between the Nuggets and Christian Brown, and they're looking at a 5-year deal in the 115 to 125 million range. So Christian Brown making a bit more there than Kamara or Shaedon Sharpe, but certainly becoming an important piece for the Denver Nuggets, and they're going to try to come to terms in order to keep him around. Then we've got Dyson Daniels and the Hawks. The problem here, while the Hawks would like to be around 115-ish million, same territory as the Nuggets want to be in with Christian Brown, Dyson Daniels is looking at for 5 years, $150 million. So again, that's where we're getting into that $30 million a year range that we talked about yesterday. Most teams are setting the cap at $25 million in terms of how much they're willing to go per season for these non-star level players. These guys who are very, very high level. I call them all-star adjacent players, guys who are effectively role players, but they're the top tier of the role player class. And Dyson Daniels looking for $150 million. That's tough because you're asking the Hawks to break through that, what has essentially been put in as an invisible barrier. Teams don't want to go more than $25 million per season. We saw it with Josh Giddey. We saw it with Jonathan Kuminga. Teams just don't want to go that far into it. And remember, if the Hawks don't get a deal done with Dyson Daniels, they would have the protection of restricted free agency the next summer. So teams are using that to squeeze players to a degree. Now, Dyson Daniels is certainly an incredible player. The three-point shooting needs to get better, but I mean, he is the great barrier thief, the steals leader in the NBA. We saw some incredible stuff from him defensively. I do like the fit with Trae Young there. So we'll see if the Hawks are able to get a deal done. But Scoto notes that Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Luke Kennard were brought in, which could eat into Daniels' playing time. So it's possible the Hawks aren't willing to commit the big money to Dyson Daniels just yet until they see that growth from behind the arc and until they see that Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Luke Kennard are not going to diminish the impact that Dyson Daniels can have. So there's a couple of guys to keep an eye on around the league. Again, Shaedon Sharpe, Toumani Camara already getting deals done. I love the value on both of those deals for the Blazers, but you've got Dyson Daniels pushing for a lot more money. To me, that makes it fairly unlikely that the Hawks ultimately do a deal. Instead, I think they'll wait for restricted free agency. They'll wait for Daniels to prove that the three-point shooting has indeed gotten better. Meanwhile, Christian Brown, some optimism they can get a deal done at $115 million. But man, if you can get Shaedon Sharpe at 90, you can get Toumani Camara in the 80s. Whew, that's some steal of a value, I think, for the Blazers compared to Christian Brown, who I like a lot. But even getting him at 115 and having to go to 150 for Dyson Daniels, just to me, makes those Blazers deals look even better. But that's where we're at. The clock is ticking. We'll see if these extensions get done around the NBA. Everybody give us your thoughts in the comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Till next time, see ya and stay safe.